You came back from New York in '56, I think it was. What was the ambition?
Well, it was kind of disgustingly. I had about $150,000 at that time, and I felt, if I earned 10% on that'd be $50,000 a year. I was interested in reading and taking courses. I thought I might go to law school. I knew there were a whole bunch of subjects I wanted to read about, and then I sort of stumbled into this partnership a few months later because 7 members of the family said we want you to handle them. So I put the 7 together in a partnership that had $105,100 in it. You can guess who the $100 was. And Homer Dodge, who'd been a stockholder at Graham Newman, came out, saw me in Omaha, and he said Graham Newman was liquidating, and he said he'd asked Ben where to put his money, and Ben said maybe Warren would be a choice. So he joined me. For a fellow in Omaha that read the legal notice, actually, a friend of mine called me up. Stumble along.
Yeah. All of a sudden, you have a partnership,
right?
And you're making money.
And I couldn't sell Keogh now, but the partnership did well. And part of the partnership was buying what looked like cheap stocks. Berkshire Hathaway looked like a cheap stock.
Now you have a vehicle.
Yeah. Well, I started out by thinking I was a textile expert, but what do these guys know about making textiles? They've only been doing it a few hundred years. I mean, the Egyptians, I think, figured out how to weave. Just turn me loose on the planet and see what happens. So anyway, what happened was right at that period, the textile business was good for a very short period of time. And so I was like a duck floating on a pond when it was raining. I was going up in the world, but I thought it was because I was flapping my wings, but it was raining. I mean, I found out, what do I know? Right. Yeah. And then we went into other businesses.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, you went into other business?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But we had some cash around. And when Jack Ringwald decided to sell his insurance companies in early '67, we paid $8.7 million, I think. We had in Berkshire, we had, I don't know, maybe $4 or $5 million around, maybe borrowed a few million.
But so that was your first entry into the insurance business. Why was the insurance business attractive?
Well, it does control money. And if you've got the writing, it gives you money to invest on my end.
How much of your revenue comes from insurance?
Well, a lot comes from insurance, and then we have a lot of money that's generated by insurance. It gave us money to both invest in marketable securities and also money to buy businesses outright.
And then in 1965, you have a chance to take over.
Right. And we didn't get out of the textile business, but I decided that to the extent, Charlie, I'd have been better off if I'd done all the subsequent things without putting them in Berkshire originally. You just talk financially. Berkshire, the textile business was a drag for 20 of them in separate entity.
Then why didn't you do that?
I don't know. But it worked out fine. But I don't know.
But everything worked out. But yeah. I mean, if you look back,
looking back, it was a big fundamental wrong decision from a finance. I've gone on and done these other things.
But you tell me why you didn't.
You got to stick with things.
Is that?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, it's just my personality. I mean, I'm driving a car after
it was about $6 or $7 million.
That probably is about right. Yeah, that's probably around right. Because in 1962, when I put all the partnerships together, it was about $1 million.
What are you thinking? I mean, I'm just going to continue finding investments that I can make, and everything will turn out all right.
In the mid-60s, I was running this partnership, so I thought I was going to keep running the partnership.
Why did you think that?
Well, the market in '69.
Oh, the stock market.
The stock market in 2000. I mean, I was left behind, and I didn't want to do things I didn't understand, and it didn't make sense to me. But I also didn't like sitting there while everybody else was. I think because this guy lost it. So I gave him all the money back, and I gave him the shares of Berkshire, and got a lot of them myself as part of that. And then I just kind of got more involved in Berkshire. It became my penny.
So you had a stake in Berkshire,
right? And I actually bought more, but I just decided I'd put all my money in Berkshire and ride with it.
And ride with Berkshire as a vehicle,
as a kind of an extension, a corporate extension of me.
Yeah. And are you out of
20 years? I even bought another textile company. I mean, this is, I'm going to confess. This is like a revival because I bought another textile company. I bought something called Wambeck Mills in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Why did you do that?
And only my psychiatrist knows. I thought I was going to solve something by doing it. I mean, I
solved something.
Well, I did it myself too. No management consultant told me to do it. So it was 1985. I'm 20 years later, before we got out of the textile business. I said it's a little bit tiptoes, and then everybody else stands up on their tiptoes to it. And all that you don't see any better, and your legs hurt. And that's what happened with textiles.
In 1973, would maybe your first run at the Washington Post.
I looked at the prospectus in 1971 when Charlie and I took on papers. And then in 1973, the stock got very cheap because their television licenses were under chip from, I think, like 38 to 16 or so in a very short period of time. And when it got down to around 20, just in a few blocks, now it's about 18% because they repurchase shares. When it got to about 20, that meant the whole Washington Post company was selling for $100 million. Now, they own the Washington Post, they own Newsweek, they own 4 big network television stations, including PBS and Money. And if you'd taken those separate parts, you literally could have been out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, at midnight in a rowboat, and you could have sold them for $500 million. People have been swimming out in shark infested. I mean, you weren't going to get all of it, but yeah.
Here's what I don't understand. How come 95 people didn't see that?
It was amazing. We were buying it, big institutional investors, and they were bailing out of it. And if you'd asked any one of them, thought the stock was going to go down. So what? And the stock did go down. In fact, after we bought it, it went down a little more. But
so what? Warren Buffett believes.
Look at the properties, and I'm looking at the Graham family. I mean, that stock we paid about $10 million for is probably worth $1.5 billion or more today. And they haven't oil. They have not invented a cure for cancer. They've just taken those properties and kept doing reasonably intelligent things, and sometimes very intelligent things that the money generated by it, and they've developed the properties they've had. And they've been terrific stewards of the money, but there's no merit.
Knowing him. That's why I say luck really plays a role in people's lives. It just does. A lot of people said stiff on him, he's buying too much stock. He means you no good. And my native instinct was, let's take a look. Let's see what he's like. And everything I learned about him was very good. So I asked him to come and take a look at the company in which he just bought his shares. He had to write me, I just bought 5% of your company. I mean you no harm. And I think it's a great company. I know it's Graham owned and Graham run, and that's fine with me. And so I got to know him. And I thought, joined our board, used to come to board meetings with about 20 annual reports. And he would take me through these annual reports. I mean, it was like going to business school with Warren Buffett.
Couldn't have a better.
It was wonderful.
Kay Graham told me that when she met you, that she'd never even give her some sense of helping her come to grips with the idea of making business decisions.
Kay was very, very smart, but she thought, because this had been pushed into her by her mother and her husband to some extent in the past. She thought only males who had been to business had the intellect, but she didn't have the confidence. And I told her my job was to get her away from looking into that funhouse mirror that she was looking into. In a real mirror, she'd see a person that was perfectly capable of running the Washington Post or any other company.
How long did it take her to learn?
Well, fits and starts over time. But I had the right raw material. I mean, she was good. She was good. And she'd had beaten into her over such a long period of time that wasn't what she could do in life, that it took success and all that sort of thing. I said, Mrs. Graham, you control this company lock, stock, and barrel, but you're still worried about me. So I said, what you're doing is you're looking at me and you're seeing fangs, and I'm telling you these are baby teeth. And I said, they really are baby teeth, except take them out. I said, even though they're baby teeth, I'm going to just take them all out. So I'm perfectly willing. You call George Gillespie up here, you're going to post unless you think okay. And I said, I'm fine. I want you happy with me. I want you nervous about me. And so George came up and I took out the baby teeth, and she saw fangs falling to the floor, and we got along great ever.
Okay, but you already had.
We had
10 million invested or not?
Yeah, we had 10 million. I told her the smart thing is to repurchase your shares. I mean, and the shares I would otherwise buy, you should buy for the company, and we'll all get richer if you do that. And she had a lot of other people advising her otherwise, but she decided to do it, and that's the reason we now action percent. The Buffalo Evening News was bought in 1977, and I gave Kay first shot at that. You did one. I gave Kay first shot at that.
You said, if you don't want to buy it, I'm
going to buy it.
Why would you do that?
I just felt that, she'd been good to me, and we wanted to buy things. So I just said, I'm not gonna find that I went up to see Vince Mano on a Sunday and bought this thing away from him, so that you otherwise would have bought. So I gave her a shot at it.
In 1983, you purchased.
This is big.
Tell me about her.
No, this is a woman that walked out of Russia, got on a peanut boat, landed in Seattle with a tag around Dodge, Iowa, which is what the tag said. She couldn't learn the language. She moved home because there were more Russian Jews here that she could talk with. Her oldest daughter started school, came home and taught her the words that she learned. He took 16 years to save $500 so she could start this company, and he's selling used clothing, bringing her siblings and her mother and father over, and went into business and competed against all these people who had all kinds of advantages over her in every way. And she killed them. And she killed them. Yeah. And how was she able to kill them? She cared about it, and she was smart. She knew the limitations of her knowledge, and she was confident within her, and she took care of her customer. She sold sheep. And it took her a long time, but she built the largest home furnishing store in the country in a town like Omaha with 700,000 people.
So how did you come to buy it?
I bought it when she was 89. She worked till 103. There was a period there where she left for a couple of years. If you went over to Mrs. B's house, as I did, and it's a very nice house, and you go in, and on her sofa, her lamps, her bed, there'd be little green tags hanging down. It made her feel like she was at the store. Earlier, she couldn't read or write. And I think every business school in the United States ought to study her. I mean,
what would they learn?
They would learn the essence of business. They would learn that taking care of your customer, is what it's all about, taking care of, and by that I mean giving them good deals, working like crazy. I mean, she was there day after day after day, and she had a passion for it. And the truth is, if you took the Fortune 500 CEOs and I gave you first VP, he'd win.
No doubt.
She'd win. Yeah. Michael Eisner was here, and I told him the story. He loved it. And Michael wanted to get the movie rights, and Michael could be very persuasive, but I referred to earlier, now at that time was probably close to 80 or so. And Francis is this tall and Michael's that tall. And when you're an 80-year-old saying their mother wants a piece of everything. I mean,
that's great. So Mrs. B wanted to, whatever they would do,
whatever
she wanted a
rights,
piece of the action
yeah,
herself.
yeah.
Business school to her. You picked that up
That's
from,
right. That's
from
exactly
understanding
right.
value. Ownership was everything.
She understood it. And she understood people awfully well.
In 1988, you started buying Coca-Cola. How come?
I don't remember exactly. Probably read their annual report. Probably read the 1987 annual report. It's a tipping point, in terms of knowledge you've accumulated over a period of time, price changes in the stock, which have gone down some. They were heavy repurchases of their own stock. Roberto and Don were doing a terrific job. Nothing bad was going to happen to Coca-Cola. So I started buying. Most of it in that period from the middle of 88 to early 89, but then a little further on. But we put overall about $1 billion.
1/10%.
No,
You have said, though, that during the bubble,
it got overpriced.
there were some
Very
things that you
overpriced.
might have sold
Sure.
and would have been wise to.
I definitely could have sold the stocks. I mean, stocks went crazy. And
But you do not today look back and say, I should have sold Coca-Cola when the bubble was there, because
I knew it was selling at a very fancy price, and I even wrote about it and say, "Wait, would you let?" But I don't do that very often. I'm not saying I wouldn't ever do it. I mean, if we went into the wildest speculative orgy in history, and some of these things went against the grain. For one thing, wonderful businesses are not that common, and if you get a big position in a wonderful business, not a bad thing.
what is the single best?
ICO twice in my life, 3 times in my life has been a good investment. I mean, it was a good investment when I was really 20 years of age, and when my net worth was like $10,000, and that caused my net worth probably to double or something like that, and that was great at the time. In 1976, the company got in trouble, and we bought what turned out to be half of the company for like $40 million, and that was a good deal. So it's been a triple play.
Help me understand this. You're sitting with more than $40 billion essentially in cash.
Right.
You could buy some big businesses, I would assume, for $40 billion.
Right.
But you don't see any at a price that you want to own.
That's the one I'm envious of. So, I mean, it isn't like we missed them. I mean, it may turn out that I should have bought one of them, but I mean, there's none that I feel, gee, I wish I bought that last year. But I hope I buy one tomorrow. I look at General Motors. General Motors is selling for about $15 billion now. There's 500 million shares, 28 or 29, something like that. And the whole world, back when I was a kid. So
and you could have it in a second.
Well, I don't know about that, but I
Well,
certainly can buy. I can buy plenty of.
What don't you know about that?
Well, I mean, a company would cost $15 billion,
That's
about
what I
100% stock. Yeah.
So why couldn't you pay $15 billion and get General
Well,
Motors?
they might not like me doing it. Some other things.
Oh, sure. I
But
understand.
nevertheless, I could buy a lot of stock at a valuation $50 billion.
And you think it's a good buy today?
I think it's too tough to figure.
Too tough to think.
Yeah, vehicles in the United States, and 1/7 of all the vehicles in the world. It employs hundreds of thousands of people, but it's got some terrible obligations outside outstanding,
like Fiat, or that's
for $2 billion, right? But still $2 billion
things
out the
like
door.
that. Yeah.
But the big problem was that they really entered into contracts with the UAW that were based on the economics of markets. And I don't blame the UAW. I mean, it was a free will negotiation, but what they signed up, I think they're paying like 2.5 people that don't work for every person that works, or something like that. And that gets to be crushing if you're competing with people that don't have the same obligations.
You've looked at this closely.
Well, I look at all the things.
When you read 8 hours a day,
Yeah,
you
right.
have a chance to
Yeah.
cover a lot of.
But General Motors, hand they're dealt. But General Motors is a huge annuity and health insurance company with a major auto company attached. And unfortunately, the huge annuity and health company has got a terrible bunch of contracts in it. It is worth some big minus number. And the question is whether the auto separate the two.
And you can't figure it out?
Well, I can figure it out.
But you can't what?
Well, in the end, I can't come to a conclusion that it's obvious that.
Well, that's what I mean. You can't come to a conclusion.
Right.
Because you don't have all the facts. Or
No, I got the fellow whether you can exist with the kind of obligations they've got in 25% of the market, and very tough people like Toyota and all kinds of people coming at them who don't have those costs, they call them legacy costs,
40 billion, I'm sorry.
There's a difference.
There's a difference. Yeah. And you've gotten so big that you got to make a big play.
Right.
That's your problem.
That's my problem. And I thought it was a problem when we were a lot smaller, and it was, but it's a bigger problem now.
So what
And
happened?
if I'm lucky, it'll be an even bigger problem 5 years from now.
And why? And you. So what? Tell me how the dilemma plays itself out for you.
The odds are reasonably intelligent things to do with most of the money, but they won't be as intelligent as the things that we could find 30 or 40 years ago with much smaller amounts of money. Nowhere close to their test.
What test does it have to be?
It has to be a business I understand. It has to be a company that I think has some kind of enduring competitive advantage. It has to be a management that price is the least important, but it's still important.
And you like going over it,
I'd like to,
but not necessarily.
but not necessarily.
It's very small. It's a small field.
It's a small field when you get to have as much money as you have. It was a big field 30 or 40 years ago. When I bought the Washington Post stock in 1973 and 74, there were hundreds of companies that met the test. It was just a question of, deciding absolutely.
And the one you like them.
Yeah.
The combination.
Mhm.
You don't have any single candidate right now.
That's true. That's why you see these tears in my eyes.
It is. I mean, how many events of
It's
I mean,
happened,
you're-
it's happened before. I mean, I closed up my partnership in '69 because I didn't feel there were any opportunities then in what I was doing, managing money, and there weren't. I mean, it's at least for me. And in the year in 1999 and 2000 in the general stock market, there was certainly nothing attractive, and we found some businesses then. But it happens from time to time. I mean, I am not in a business here, but I may be in a business where you do something smart every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, but I mean, I read every day about one more big deal by a group of private equity guys in the paper today.
Right.
Yes,
And they're using other people's money, and they get an override, and their calculus is not the same as my calculus. And right now, they just it's money they get from somebody else that they get paid quite a bit of money on if they don't do anything, and then they get a percentage of the upside, and they don't take the downside. I mean, that is a different calculus to the Berkshires.
Yeah, you have the upside and the downside.
Upside and the downside, and I'm going to resell it.
They're not going to take a big fee for doing it.
No, so I don't have an exit strategy, and I'm not getting paid just to sit with a whole bunch of other people's money. It's my money.
We sat down again with Warren on June 29th, 2006 with him. We talk about the future of Berkshire Hathaway.
Right.
The last time we talked about the rise of Berkshire Hathaway, you were sitting, you didn't find anything that you were very interested in making investments. Since then, you've made some investments.
Yeah, we've spent over 10 billion this year. And,
when was this?
5 billion. Business Pacific Corp was 5 and a fraction billion. And we're finding a few things. The important thing is to find big things.
Okay, for you have. But my question is, did anything change between, say, 2004 and 2006? I mean, because you don't look at the economy as much as you look at the business.
I only look at the business. There's never been a business that would be better next year. There's never been one I bought because I thought the economy was going to do particularly well this year. I look at a business. We're going to hold it forever. If I hold, let's say I live 20 years, that's pretty optimistic. There's going to be a few bad years, in the economy. But what difference does it make? I mean, it's like playing 18 holes of golf. There's some par 3s and par 5s, and well, I like business, and so we're going to play the tough years. We're going to play the easy years, and if we got the right businesses and the right managers, it's going to work.
I mean, why couldn't you have seen ISCAR in 2004? Because it was just to make the investment in 2006 rather than 2004. Except the CEO wrote you an email.
That's right. I never heard of the company in 2004. That's the reason. It's very hard to do it if you haven't heard of the company. He wrote me a letter in October.
This is the guy who's the CEO.
He's the CEO and the owner and his family. And he wrote me in October, a fraction about the company. And he said, Berkshire is a logical home for us. And he said, I'd like to talk to you. So he came over from this. You would have been cheaper, too.
Yeah,
I wish he had written me in 2004.
But my point is understanding why you didn't see companies was nothing having to do with the economy, nothing.
Yeah, it's availability. It's availability. Yeah. Sometimes it's something that happens in a family. There may be more people, or they may owe taxes, or who knows what. I mean, we buy when they're ready to buy. It's ready to sell. And I don't go out prospecting. I let my call on this person, might call that one, and soften them up, or and then I don't do it because my batting average would be terrible. You've got to wait till they're ready to do something. When they're ready, my phone rings.
At this stage in your experience, you know pretty quickly if it's right.
Yeah, like about 2 minutes. Yeah. I mean, I read the letter from Kathy. I knew it's right. I mean, knew it was right. I don't want to get personal, but there's some,
and you know that other people would like them, but it's just not for you.
It's just not for you.
To do with, I mean, you can see the numbers immediately. You got to make an evaluation of the management. How can you do that so quick? You just have at this time in your life,
It's
an instinctive knowledge.
yeah, it's not going to always be right, but it's usually going to be right.
Earnings
35
record.
million pre-tax.
Plus
of earnings.
75 million. You're looking at management. You're looking at
A simple business, one I can understand, which really means simple. And we're looking for management.
the seller must know.
Yeah.
The price. Is it a hard negotiation or is it pretty quick? I mean, they know what.
Very quick because they know that. I mean, if I like the price and if it meets the test, it can take any time really, Charlie. Now there's others. If I spent 2 years on them, I wouldn't know the answer at the end of 2 years. But I do know the difference between the ones that take 2 years and the ones that take 2 minutes
to do the due diligence.
No. If I need them, I need a doctor maybe to tell me about my health. But if I need them to tell me about a business, they ought to be running Berkshire. I did not take money from 400,000 people. But this guy, I thought he was good. He just had me was wrong. It's my job to know what I'm doing. And if I don't know what I'm doing, I don't do it.
Well, we've established that you know what you're doing.
No, not always.
Coca-Cola is one example.
That's you hit it right on the button. Just keep this quiet.
I mean, you ever say, man, what am I doing here? My commitment to the end is.
No, I looking back, I made a mistake. But no, I don't look back on things.
Okay, but let me just say with that idea.
Yeah.
So you look back and you say, when it was $80 a share, sure, sold it because that was at its top, say, or close to its top, and
50 plus times earnings.
Right.
Yeah, 50. No, but I do sell marketable securities sometimes. I don't sell businesses,
right?
But I do sell.
Okay, sure. And this is a marketable security.
That was a marketable security.
As is American Express,
Yeah.
as is
Businesses.
So for when you're married to them for better or worse.
Yeah, I've got one section in the annual report, and I put it in every year, that if a business like that promises to lose it, but just because I don't think it's going to do very well, or I can use the money better elsewhere, or because I get offered a crazy high price for something, I don't sell them. I got offered a crazy high price for something here recently that we own, and I told the fellow that called me, I said, I don't do it. You can look in the back of the annual report. And he's not believe it now.
He thought he could buy it, and
he thought he could buy it. He named a number to me and
it was a good number.
It was a good number. If I was trusted simply to get the best economic result of children's home, I would have had to sell it.
Exactly. Since I last talked to you, you have, with the consent, in concert with other members of the board, have chosen a successor.
Well, meeting of the board. We don't have very many meetings, but every meeting of the board, that's the subject. And the question is, if something happens to me that night, who do they put in charge? So they always go away knowing what they would do the next day. Now there may be at any time. And so if something happened to me tonight, tomorrow morning, the board of directors of Berkshire would convene, and they would know exactly who they were going to put in charge.
You will run Berkshire as long as
I keep my marbles.
And you have somebody that'll come to tell you that you don't have them if necessary.
Well, I tell them they better all three come in together, because if just one comes, I'm cutting them out of the will.
You have said that you want to keep, if you could find $30 billion in acquisition bid.
About 10 billion, yeah.
Now, why that breakup? Well, why that?
Well, I think that a company that writes the catastrophe insurance and all of that sort of thing that we do, shock and Gibraltar. I mean, we've got 400,000 shareholders. We've got people who have workers' compensation claims against us that are quadriplegics, or that are going to be getting a check from us 60 years from now. I've got no business fooling around with anything close to the solvent, way over on the safe side in every respect, and having a lot of money around. When you're in the insurance business like we are, I don't want to depend on letters of credit from banks or anything of the sort. I don't want no too big to fail doctrine to bail my numbers.
Is the insurance business still as attractive to you today as it
sort of fits me? I mean, it gives you the money first, so the investment element is important. It all isn't.
That's what you.
I guess I was probably destined to be a bookmaker, but my dad wouldn't let me.
You can calculate on it. But hurricanes, increasing number of terrorism is a fact of life today.
I think so.
No matter how you can write a policy against all those things. I mean, does it make it?
Right, the odds right? You got to get the right premium. And you never know whether you've gotten the right premium. I mean, over a lifetime, whether overall you've gotten the right premium for things, but you lose on some policies and day or week or month whether you're doing the right thing. But over time, you'll see whether your judgment has generally been right. And it's an interesting game. So
all of the controversy about AGI and AIG.
No, we're doing, we do a lot of business. I mean, we've got a lot of different irons in the fire in the insurance business. I mean, we've got guns no, it'll be the most important business at Berkshire throughout my lifetime, and probably a long time thereafter.
One thing you're doing is looking out to international companies.
It's green very much for entire businesses abroad. People did not think of us in Germany or the UK or up till now Israel. They had a business to sell. Now I've always looked at international stocks, and we've always owned some international stocks.
Tell me how you see the economy today.
People they've taken lots of equity out of their, or they've extracted the equity that's appreciated in their houses big time in the last few years and all that. But if you look at the economy right today, but they are not manifesting themselves in business today.
Do you worry about inflation?
I worry some about inflation. Sure. Inflation is never gone. It's always in remission. and you know, it's something that is man-made and governments can create, and it oftentimes seems preferable to some alternative that's in the here and now. So you have to worry about anytime. I'm no good on oil prices. I mean, you know, we're using 84 million barrels a day or so in the world of oil, and if something disrupts 3 or 4 million barrels a day of supply, like something happening in Iran, perhaps, you know, the marginal barrel will go capacity by far than we had 15 to 20 years ago.
When you think about the dollar,
I think the dollar over time will go down because I think we're following policies that in connection with trade that will cause the dollar. I don't know whether it'll be, but the policies we're following as a country will cause the dollar, in my view, to decline.
primarily.
Side of our trade deficit is when we consume more than we produce, we have to trade the rest of the use of the government. We give them dollars initially, and then they can convert those into other assets in this country. So we are trading away assets.
Pieces of the farm.
Yeah, we give away pieces of the farm. We want to eat. We want to consume more than we produce, and so we trade away a little bit of the farm. And we've got such a big farm. I mean, it's, you know, day by day, but it adds up and it has consequences.
More severe to you than the fiscal deficit.
That's true. Yeah, the fiscal, our national debt in relation has been higher, particularly after World War II. And I don't like it when it keeps going up as a percentage of GDP. But a very rich country can stand more debt than more debt than in the past. Now, as that debt gets to be more and more owned by the rest of the world because of the trade deficit, you know, it can cause problems down the line. But I would rather largely cure the trade deficit.
You accept the argument that countries like China are locked into this dance with us because they need our market, so they're unlikely to dump American securities.
Sell them to somebody in the United States, they get dollars with them. So they have to buy something else for the dollars. If they sell them to the French now have them, you know, and the Chinese have got a claim on France, but they can't really get rid of them. They can change their asset, can't get rid of American assets, basically, or the rest of the world can't unless we start exporting as much of them as we're importing. And that day is coming.
But there are people who will suggest that there may be some catastrophic day. And we had that little tremor from the South Koreans about a year ago.
There could be a catastrophic day. I don't know the answer to that. Balances in the world, and you have lots of people on hair triggers trading currencies and stock and bonds.
You have a sense of where we are. A lot of people look at the budget that they see today, and they look 10 years out, and they say with the baby boom generation coming in and Social Security and Medicare, you know, that we are looking at a huge problem downstream, that either we got to raise taxes, cut spending, or
a lot of what you see coming down the road as really large looming problems revolve around promises. And we won't, in my view, ever change the promise on Social Security.
No politician will suggest that.
No, they wouldn't. But this country has incredible resources. It has more resources per capita than it had 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. I mean, we're not going backwards economically as a very rich family, Charlie, and our income can keep going up. But if I promised, you know, the elder members of the family that they would, you know, all live like multimillionaires, we could get in trouble.